My name is Mary Gagler. I'm the director of Amos Eno Gallery, and I'm here today with Rosemary Meza-DesPlas. So I'm excited to be here to interview and find out more about your artist studio practice. Just a little bit of an intro. You joined the gallery in 2017, I believe?
Yes.
And your first solo show with us was Jane Anger in February 2019. So that was it was such an incredible show with featuring some of your spoken word performance art. And yeah, so I'm excited to find out more about what's going on in your studio.
Okay.
So can you tell us a little bit about where you are?
Yes. Can you hear me good?
Audio is great.
Yeah. Okay. So I live in Farmington, New Mexico, and it's the northwest corner of the state of New Mexico. So a little bit of a sparser area. And I've lived here since 2016. I'm originally from Texas, and we're in my studio right now. I am primarily known for hand-sewn hair drawings, watercolors, and large drawing installations. But as Mary mentioned, I also do spoken word performances. And when I do my performances, I create my own costumes and memorize my poetry and try to create a mood with it, sometimes using props.
Great. So those props, will we see any of those in your studio today?
Actually, there's a weird little head that's right back there that's kind of dangling. That was a rejected prop. I was going to use it and then I didn't. Here, I'll show you, since it's not very far, I'll show you this one. These are kind of experiments that just ended up sitting in the studio. So they didn't go anywhere, but this was my idea of a doll, and there's a French word right here which means mean, M-E-A-N, like a mean girl. So anyway, a rejected prop from spoken word.
Yeah, it seems that's sort of the kind of thing that makes the artist studio visits so unique. It's the things that don't get shown, the things that are still sources of inspiration, but for whatever reason were rejected.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see, that vinyl. I haven't really seen vinyl in your work. That clear plastic.
I did an entire series using vinyl material that they use for shower curtains. The clear, and it's kind of thicker. It was kind of the thickest shower curtain vinyl I could find. And I tried sewing into it with a sewing machine. I tried gluing things onto it. So I did a lot of experimentation. I only showed them, I think I showed them once. This is not on vinyl, but it's from that time period. So it's watercolor paper, but I was using this flocking material. So it's kind of got a velvety texture to it. And then I was also sewing into this watercolor paper with these forms and trying to learn how to sew a little bit better with a machine. I normally sew by hand or stitch by hand. So this was kind of an experiment. I learned something. I mean, every experiment, the great thing about it is you learn something from it. And you take what you learn and you put it into the next piece. So none of it's, a lost cause. I got something out of it.
Do you have any of your hand-sewn works on view in your studio?
I actually don't. Oops. I have creepy things. So
that's great. Let's see some creepy things.
I collect my hair. So here is a bin of my hair that I've collected. So it's just all together right here. And this is from 2019. So 2019 hair. And I've written that on the front, so I'll remember. And so the hair goes from that point, and then it gets sorted, and I put it on a sheet of paper, and I've sorted long strands. And then I'm using small needles. That's hard to see, like that one. And since I started going gray, as you can see from here, I'm now sorting gray hair. So here is my gray hair that has been sorted, and it's ready for someone to work with, me, obviously. So there's that. I do have, by chance, have a drawing I started when I was first starting to work with canvas, and I rejected this one. So there you go. But so there you go. That's the beginning of it. So I stopped working with it, and I just put it away. It was too static for me. So to me, hair has a life of its own. It's kind of tangling, and it curls up, and it's wispy and moving. And the way I had sewn it here, to me, was too static. And so it was a hair failure, if you will.
Interesting. So yeah, it almost seems like if it acts too much like embroidery thread, then it's deviating, then you don't want it. Like, that's not why you're choosing this material.
Right. So I like the life that it's inherent in hair itself. And, I want that feeling of the hair kind of snaking towards the viewer, coming off of the surface. And so in this piece, it didn't happen. So I just put it away, went on to something else. Here's something interesting. So I also do wall drawing installations, and sometimes I create the wall drawing installations. I go directly to the gallery and use Conte and draw directly on the wall. One piece I did was 25 feet long by 9 to 10 feet high. So they're very large. Sometimes I can't quite finish it in the time frame I'm being given by the gallery. So I do some prep work in order for me to do them a little bit faster. So one thing I figured out is I could take my hair drawings and send them off to a company and have them printed on fabric. And then I could take and cut out pieces from the fabric, adhere them to like a vinyl applique, and put that on the wall, so that some of the drawing might be done directly on the wall, and then some of it is pre-prepared before I get to the gallery, just to make the process go a little bit faster. So it's taking my work and using my own work and recycling it in a different way, giving it a new life.
Yeah, it sounds like that plays with the materiality too. Since there's that coming off the wall with the hair, with the individual strands, and then a sort of coming off the wall in the applique also.
Right. Yeah. So And then I've taken my watercolors and done a similar thing. So I will have them printed and make little vinyl appliques. So this is a watercolor, and it's actually a sticker. So it peels off and you can put it directly on the wall. I won't peel it off right now, but, and I use these in an installation in Durango, Colorado. And so they're abstract breast forms. And there was an interactive component to the exhibit, and that's that the viewer, there is a book there, and the show is about gender-based burdens. And you were supposed to write about your own experience with a gender-based burden, or how you think that you could help or alleviate or in some way help other women or make suggestions. And you didn't have to leave your real name. You were supposed to leave the name of a female artist as your sign-in. And then after you did that, you took one of these off the wall and you took it home with you. And so you got a small piece of artwork for participating.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I guess the vinyl applique, you did have in Jane Anger in February 2019, you did have the vinyl floor applique.
Right.
These
And that
boots
was my first time to do a floor.
Okay.
But it worked out well. And that was audience participation too, because they wanted people to walk on it.
And can you just tell us, for anyone who didn't see that work, can you just tell us what was depicted in the applique?
Sure. It was a piece called These Boots Are Gonna Walk All Over You, which is from a song, Nancy Sinatra. And on the wall were 25 11 by 15 watercolors with thread. And then on the floor were the same faces, but in a grid formation in this vinyl applique that adhered to the floor. And the images depicted men who had been, who were part of the U2 movement, who had been accused of sexual impropriety. And several of the men that I depicted were men who, after being accused, actually later on came out and said, yeah, I did do it. And so, so they're depicted, but their faces are very abstract. Some of their features are kind of smeared and or removed or morphed into something else. And the idea was for viewers who came in to walk across their faces that was on the floor. And so their sexual advances or sexual assaults were part of disrespecting women. It's as if somebody just walked all over you and didn't hear when you said no. And so this was the reverse, and we were walking on them.
Yeah, it's an incredibly powerful, way for art to function as that kind of reversal. It was a powerful piece in the exhibition, in a powerful exhibition. So yeah, it was really something.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess it seems like so much of your work has this sort of reversal, or a change from a static to more dimensional, more dynamic version of a figure. So much of your work is figurative.
Right.
I know there's a figurative work behind you. Do you want to talk about that? That's I think, is that something recent that you're working on?
It's very recent. So I'm going to take you closer. How about that?
Great.
So I'm starting a series that's about marching. And so I'm interested, you mentioned that last series, which was Jane Anger, and that show. So this is kind of coming out of that series. So there's some details of the work. So it is hand-sewn human hair. And there are appliques on the piece. And then the method to install it is bra straps.
Brilliant.
And then there's some more details of the hair. So I wanted to, going from Jane Anger, I was thinking about anger and the idea of agency. And when you're very angry about something, what propels you to go out and protest? And I was certainly thinking about the women's marches, but also thinking about just the history of protest and women's involvement in protest. And if you think about the Women's March from 2017, is that right? Yeah, there's been 3. They had said that that was like the most women, greatest numbers that had ever marched. So I was like, well, why now? And how many participated in past marches? And so part of my artwork is working within a series, but also researching that topic. So I've been researching the idea of the marches. We know that the one in 2017 happened right after the inauguration for President Trump. And in my research, I found out don't quote me on this because I don't have the dates memorized. I think it was 1913 or 1903. It's Woodrow Wilson. And they marched right before his inauguration. So I didn't know that. And so part of the series is me also just researching that idea of these protests, when they happened, how many people participated in it, what sparked the protest, and also what happened. Did something change? You know, the idea is you're walking for change, but did something change? What came out of it? And oddly enough, the whole series is sparked by, there's a song by Beyonce called Formation. And the refrain in it is, okay, ladies, now let's get in formation. And I think of it as, okay, ladies, now let's be politically active. Let's get in formation. Let's get ready. Let's have some agency and participate in what's happening in the world. And so that's kind of what started this idea of the marching. So I want to do 2 more pieces that are the same size. This is 60 inches high by 33 inches, so that there's 3 of them going across. And then I'm going to work on a hair drawing with these figures. And towards that end, I've been doing I do a lot of sketching before I commit to what I'm going to do. So trying to figure out how I want the figures to look. I want it to have a sense of movement, and for me, that's kind of the challenge of it. And so I'm really focusing on the bottom half of the figure. I'm not giving them faces. It's not so much about identity in terms of formation and marching. I think the identity is the entire group versus one single person in that group or in that movement. You know, really focusing on the power of the group itself, propelling forward some message or a protest. And so that's why I'm not focusing on faces for this one. In the same series, I do have a series of faces. They're in a gallery right now, but they're faces of women politicians in the throes of anger. And so I've done Elizabeth Warren, AOC, Kamala Harris so far. And so that's part of the same series, this idea of, I think that the first march, the result of it, or the positive, is that it resulted in more women running for office. So there was more political activity on the part of women in trying to seek different positions, whether it was locally, regionally, or nationally.
So that, yeah, right, a tangible, a measurable difference after that mobilization.
And you can't always figure out what's happening or if it's a positive. Sometimes it can take, 20 years and look back to see what were the results from that. So.
Yeah, right. I mean, it must take, it takes years to get a campaign together. It's an interesting change. Yeah, since your work, so much of the work that I am familiar with of yours does feature the women's facial expressions and such a strong focal point of the work. And so it's interesting to see you changing from that into this sort of maybe mobilization is identityless. It seems like you're grappling with them as
every series is an exploration, so it's research and then mulling it over and thinking about it, and then even within the series ideas change, and so it might start out here and then the next few pieces might look different based on what I've been thinking about or what more I've researched about that topic. So there's an evolution within the series of works as they develop.
Yeah, can you tell us more about your sources of inspiration? What is in your studio space that functions that way as inspiration for you?
Okay, I'll get up for this. Bring things over. I've got my Betty Friedan candle. So Betty Friedan wrote The Feminine Mystique, which is a important feminist book. And then I've got my Harriet Tubman $20 bills that I also use in a performance. So I actually have a poem about her, and during the performance I hand out these $20 bills. So I have those around. I have the Hillary Clinton as a nurse, who's more risque there. And over to that side, there are lots and lots of books. So I spend a lot of time reading. So we've got The F Word, Feminism in Jeopardy. We've got A History of the Wife. I did a series a long time ago, 2007, and it was called Bad Wife, Good Wife. It was inspired by Marilyn Yalom's book here. So lots of book inspiration. And then I have coloring books. So
that's great.
Things to play around with. And then odd little soft sculptures. So experimental. Didn't go anywhere. They hang here in my studio just for fun. And I used that fabric that I had made from my hair drawing for this.
So do you ever make soft sculptures that stand on their own? I guess I'm familiar with your soft sculptures as props in performances.
I actually do. I had a show and I made about 3 or 4 of them that they weren't figurative, but when you propped them up and I stood them up, they started to kind of take on the shape of some sort of figurative form, the way that they were standing. Also in my studio over there, I have every sketchbook from 1985. So,
whoa. Oh my gosh. Can you pick one at random and show us a page, or?
Oh, sure. Do that. This is from the 80s. It's looks like that. And it's a page from it. So this is graduate school in Baltimore. I went to MICA. Another page from an old sketchbook. I like having these sketchbooks. I kind of think of it as it's my own library of ideas. So I can go back and revisit an idea. It's also funny because sometimes I think, wow, I've never done that before. That's so new for me. And then I realize, oh no, I did that back in like 2003, something similar, but not the same. Another.
That's great. So you're working with watercolors there? Yeah.
Yeah, and I write in them and glue things into them. I still, sometimes I see an article, so I take the article and I put it into my sketchbook because I want to remember it. So this was one about, it's called The Tortured Mechanics of Eroticism.
Wow, juicy. That's great.
This was a working sketch for a display that was going to be in an art show. So I was trying to do some preliminary sketches for what I was going to do. And then when I work in my watercolors and work with my figures, I plot out the values that I'm using. And so in one painting, I jot down everything I've used. So that I know kind of where it's going, what I've already used, what I like, what I didn't like in it. This was from I did a wall drawing, and the wall drawing was these 2 women that were holding hands. I had the idea of incorporating the stencil and then, nah. But it was a thought. It was just a thought. There's the original photos for that wall drawing. So I started with some photos of me and a friend. And I did a series with guns. So there's some sketches from that. And then my sketches for my current series.
Mm-hmm. Great. So do you draw from life to begin those works, or do you work from photographs or mirrors, or how do you what's your model for these?
I had models when I was in Dallas.
Okay.
So haven't really found anyone here in New Mexico. So sometimes I use my own figure, take photographs and use the photographs as my reference. In Dallas, I did a series of chicks with guns. And so I hired the models and borrowed actual guns from my brother-in-law and had the models holding the guns in different ways. And I did my sketches and did my watercolors from that. So it depends on what I'm doing, but preferably a model, if not, then reference photos taken of a model or myself or someone else if they're available.
That's great. Yes, glad to hear you mention that series. I'm a big fan of that series of Women with Guns. That was the first work that was the first time that I became aware of your work, was with the we had an exhibition here at Amos Eno Gallery called Peace Among Savages, aka the Gun Show, and that was when I learned about your work. And it was amazing the way that the submissions we received for that work, so many of them had a gendered component. And so that was my introduction to your work, which was
That's
so cool.
Yeah,
so it's just amazing to see. Yeah, is there any, are there any other aspects of so much of your work explores these, looks so far down these different avenues of exploring gender and expression of uniquely gendered anger.